Good morning.
Good morning to you. How's it going?
It's good. I feel like my intros get more awkward and more awkward. I just say good morning for no reason.
Well, this is great because when I jump on my YouTube, I'm fortunate enough to go through my intro 15 times before I
have like
put it
a
out
quick, snappy thing like
there.
that I repeat every time.
Right. Let's get it. We'll do it together. We'll work on it together.
Okay. What is it?
I'm thinking something more like, you know how Folgers
Have a little jingle?
Yeah, a little Folgers jingle.
Heart awaken.
Waking up, there it is.
No, I will save everyone my spectacular singing voice. But Quinell, I'm super excited to have you on. Kind of through the grapevine, found our way to each other. And you've been doing some really awesome things as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, whichever title you prefer, as well as some influencing YouTube stuff that I'm excited about. So, first, let's talk about your journey into entrepreneurship. Where you started, how you got there, what you started doing.
Well, entrepreneurship is, it's funny, it's funny that entrepreneurship, I hear a lot of different stories, right? You hear people like, I know this is where I was supposed to be. This is what the Lord created me to be. And then you hear people that say, you know what? I just kind of fell into it. And then there's me who says, you know what? I think it's a little bit of both. I think when you have certain experiences that you go through in life, when you see certain things, when you go through certain things, it almost forces you to be an entrepreneur, And I grew up a lot, just a lot like my peers, just very humble beginnings, didn't have a lot of money. So my mom was like, if you want something, bro, you got to go get it. So I think I was almost like forced into entrepreneurship, but still wanted to work a steady job and, and have steady income coming in. And you know what I mean? I'm like, I want it all. So I think my first spiel into entrepreneurship was I was 16 years old. I was working at Popeye's Chicken. And at working at Popeye's Chicken, I started to notice a lot of things like we used to just give away food at the end of the night, give it to the homeless or throw it out. So I used to take boxes of Popeye's chicken and biscuits to school the next day, heat it up during lunch, and sell biscuits.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. It made me, so I'm an avid Friends watcher. I've probably watched every episode 6 times. And there's this episode where Ross has to sell Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's doing well until he finds out that someone's older sister went and sold them on college campuses.
That is funny.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of like my first real dive into entrepreneurship without knowing what it was called. 16 years old, you don't know what it's called.
No.
You know what I mean? You just like.
And then there's a beauty that comes with that, right? Because you're not afraid to go and try it. Like, and you're not oh, that's a dumb idea. I don't know that I could do that. And no, it's just like, why couldn't I? It's going to waste anyway. Let's figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, the biggest thing I think I hear, people say about entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship sounds cool, right? It looks good in the caption. It looks amazing on your Instagram bio. But I feel the true definition of entrepreneurship is finding something that either has a need, but it wasn't filled, or finding a pain point that you fill. You know what I mean? And I felt like I felt that void. No one wanted to eat cafeteria lunch.
No.
So I brought Popeye's chicken. They're like, bro, you're onto something. So before knowing what it was actually called, I think that was my first bit into what the introduction of entrepreneurship was.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of, I think it gives entrepreneurship the reframing maybe we need as adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and how often do we even hear things like we should be more childlike, not childish, but childlike.
Yeah, childlike,
and retain that sorry, excuse me, that hope that you're not overcomplicating things. It's just, you run and you run with an idea and you do it, as opposed to holding on to that idea and being afraid or wondering if, will people buy my Popeye's chicken?
Yeah.
They're gonna buy your Popeye's chicken.
They're gonna buy your Popeye's chicken. And again, let's not forget, we had cafeteria high school lunch. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and to your point, it's identifying that pain and coming in. There may be a solution, but it might be a crappy solution, and that crappy solution was the cafeteria.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is hunger. We have to have lunch in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And there's one way to do that, but yeah.
Not the cool way.
Not the cool way. What was your more adult entry into entrepreneurship?
I think just like any 18, 19-year-old kid, you don't really have, unless you're just a Zuckerberg and you know what I mean? Your brain is just, it's freakishly above. But I think a lot of my peers, man, we all wanted to start clothing lines. You know what I mean? Like that was the thing to do. The barrier to entry was very, very affordable.
Yeah.
You knew as a kid, you were already rocking cool clothes anyways, or trying to rather. And that was my first introduction to entrepreneurship as an adult. Was I wanted to sell, I actually started a Christian t-shirt brand called Lightheaded Clothing. So it was like based off of the scripture, Jesus is the light of the world, and those who believe in him should not perish. So I started as a Christian clothing line, and then I transitioned it into a dance clothing line, and I just did 5-6 variations of the same thing.
Yeah.
So
in and out of dance clothing.
Absolutely. In and out of like dance clothing, Christian clothing. You name it, I just wrapped it up in a different bow. Same box.
Yeah. And why? What was it, just that tied to as a kid wanting cool clothes, or what was your motivation there?
You know what? I think I've always wanted to give people a piece of me, like my expressive nature, right? And I felt like my biggest and most my biggest way of almost winning people over was giving them something that I know I made. So when I saw them and they were rocking something that I made, I'm like, dude, I made that, So I think it was like the validation factor. For me, it was being 18, 19, you wanted validation in something, you know what I mean? And I wasn't out creating websites and doing anything that way, but I always wanted people to kind of identify with me and identify with what I was going through at the time or the season of life that I liked. And if you saw people rocking the stuff that you identified in that season, you felt good,
Yeah.
So I think that's why I stayed in the whole clothing thing, because I was like, I want to see people rock something that I've identified with at this time. Like I created this light bulb, weird looking thing at this time, and people identify with it. Okay, that's good. Then I started doing dance clothing and, certain sayings and fabrics. And I'm like, this reminds me of like me. So they rock it and they identify with it. So I think that was the biggest driving factor now that we talk about it. I never even thought about it. But now that I am thinking about it, I'm like, I think it was more of the people identifying with the identity that I wanted and that I had at the time. And they kind of took that character on with me.
Yeah. It is an innate human desire to want to belong, to be included. And I can see how that did that, how someone saying, oh, Quinell, I love not only your idea, but your design enough that I'm going to wear it around and let people associate me with it.
Absolutely.
It's very empowering. Yeah, I like that. So you dabbled in that.
Uh-huh.
And your why there was very powerful.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you lost it because you went to a corporate job later, right?
Yeah, I did. You know what? I think the why never left. The why changed a little bit, right?
Okay.
The why changes as you progress, as you grow, as you start to have kids, take on a family, right? 18, 19, it was like my why was selfish, and it was like, and if I can make some money, heck yes. So, but the why was strong, but it didn't have, I feel like it was strong in within myself, but didn't have root. That's why I went to another job. You know, like you keep doing jobs. And then the obvious, man, when you're starting a clothing brand, how long does it take to get something like that off the ground? You know, that could take years. So, and I was newly like engaged at that time, and I was like, man, I gotta make some money because I'm getting married soon. So, and I've always, you know what, I've liked the idea of a job, not because I knew I was good at it, but because I just knew the stability that I thought it would carry for me, you know? So, and growing up, I mean, I was born in the 80s. So growing up, early 90s, early 2000s, the biggest thing was go to school, you know, get a good job, retire at 70, and you're good. Your 401k or your pension or whatever it is good for you, you know? So I thought that was my route. And I feel like when the Lord tugs on you in a different direction and you don't want to listen, you just kind of like get off. He's, I'm trying to tell you something. Then you listen, you know? So yeah, the corporate job thing was definitely in my path, but for good reason. I learned how to communicate. I learned how to write an effective email. I learned how to be a chameleon depending upon who I'm talking to. So the corporate world definitely served a great purpose for me, because I didn't say this before, but I worked in banking before. So I learned how to itemize and process and empathize with certain clientele. And then it went on and on and on. So yeah, I definitely appreciated the time I spent in the corporate world.
Yeah. I like that too, because I feel like some people, like you said earlier, right, there may be different routes that have taken people into entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And if you're the kind where you just felt called to it, and either you have an idea that fails or you're unable to maybe execute on something, that you might feel like a failure moving to corporate life. So I like that you reframed that and how it really did refine you for your path to continue on through entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. And you know what? I don't want it to be confused with, you hear a lot of people these days, you know, are you sick of your 9-to-5? Do you hate your job? Like, don't knock being an employee. Okay. That being an employee doesn't mean that you're less than. It just means that that's where you're supposed to be at that given time. Now, entrepreneurship may knock on your door a couple of years down. For me, it kind of forced the door open because, like I was telling you earlier, I wanted to be a good employee. I just was not a good one, like at all. Like, and I tried. I didn't go into work like, forget you guys. I can't wait till this is over. I got bigger and better things. I was like, no. What do I have to do to please my bosses and to meet my quotas and to do what I need to do so that I can retire with a good savings and blah, blah, blah. But it was just not in the cards for me. And I don't know. I hear so many YouTube guys like, ditch the 9-to-5 and get rid of this. And that may be in fact true for those who have to do it, or for those who feel like they're called to do it, not because you walk into office Monday morning, you throw your papers on the desk and you say, I'm out of here because I'm going to do this whole entrepreneurial thing. Yeah. Because it's not easy, man. It's not. So.
Well, and to your point of calling those people out to it, it's not necessarily that you get to ditch a 9-to-5. You might be working 7 to 7.
Absolutely.
Especially in those stages where you're building it.
Absolutely.
And it's just you, and you don't have someone else to help you with it. It can be a grind.
Yeah, absolutely. And to shed light on that grind, my most recent 2017 is I was forced out of my job, right? It wasn't, I love the people, love the company. It was great. They were just like, hey, this isn't working. You know what I mean? Like you're not really meeting the expectation that we thought we had for you. And it's so funny because they found me when I was at the height of me selling something. Like a manager found me at AT&T. I was working at AT&T, and I mean, selling, you know, being charismatic. That's me in general. So I got hired to be behind a computer at my house alone. So that in itself was like, this ain't good for me, but I took it anyways, you know, just because I felt like I had good opportunity. But long story short, yeah, I was forced out of that job, and I was forced into full-time entrepreneurship. I didn't want to. I was forced into it, but it was the best thing that happened.
Well, and that actually is a good maybe pivoting point to our current state of affairs, right? Where there very well may be a lot of people who were just out.
Absolutely.
So how did you, in that instance, maintain hope and drive forward with an idea? And I mean, you'd already kind of had the clothing experiences before, so you probably you grabbed that one and ran with it again. But
absolutely.
Yeah, how did you do that?
You know what? It was the first few months of being let go was actually the first few weeks hurt, because I was like, here I am making, I mean, in 2017, I thought it was a lot of money. I'm making $40K salary. I thought I was hot stuff. And I was living in San Diego, so that's nothing. Right? That's pennies. But I was like, here I am, hot stuff, making $40K salary, staying at home with my family. And it felt great. But soon after that, I had to like pick it up and be like, okay, well, what is my next move? Because I was getting unemployment, right? I was fortunate enough for that. But you know what? There was one day, and I vividly remember this day, I was on unemployment and I was collecting EBT, like food stamps. And I took my kids to Jack in the Box, okay? Tried to get them a $5 meal or whatever. I don't remember exact total, but I didn't have enough money on an EBT card to buy Jack in the Box. And I think after breaking down and like feeling like I was a failure, I was like, I have to figure out how to never feel like this again. Like, I can't even buy food from government funded money. Like, I felt terrible, you know? So that kicked me into gear. And you know what? I just started, I'm a choreographer as well. Gosh, after talking, I do so much. I do so many things, but.
Well, isn't that the case of the serial entrepreneur? You just have all these things.
So dance started to become kind of my full-time thing for a few months. Didn't make real money at it. But what it led me to, which is my full-time thing today, is it led me into asking different people, hey, where can I get an embroidery machine? I'm paying X amount of dollars to make, because I was still trying to make dance clothes at the time. I'm like, dude, I'm tired of paying these guys this much money. I looked at my records. I paid an embroidery laborer $15,000 one year. And I was like, that's a machine for myself, you know? So long story short, found a machine, and I didn't do it for anybody but myself at the time. You know, the first year of embroidering, I was just doing it so that I could make a better margin on the clothes that I was selling. Yeah. You know, and people are like, well, where'd you get that embroidered? Da, da, da. And then you kind of know how that goes. You know, you find people asking and you say, dude, I did it, you know? And with me saying I did it, it just kind of turned more into me less presenting for a brand for myself and more so presenting for brands of others. And I think the biggest thing, I was like, you know what? I could sell this one brand and work my butt off to sell this one brand, or I can diversify and be available to make money on multiple people starting brands, not just myself. So yeah, that's what launched into my embroidery business that I have today.
Yeah, I love that. It seems like you very soon on there, at least, rather business minded. You know, you mentioned margins. Mm-hmm. And it might not necessarily that financial aspect of entrepreneurship, understanding supply chain or how to price things, or your MRR, ARR, monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue, you know, might not come supernaturally, but it can just be small things like,
absolutely,
what am I paying this individual, and can I find a way to do it myself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's just kind of what happened. It's so funny because now it all depends on the season of life you're in, right? Entrepreneurship is not, it's an open book test. It's not like A through Z and it's done, right? It's a consistent open book test. So at the time you're thinking, I'll do any and everything myself at the beginning stages. Then you get to a place where I'm at now. You're like, okay, well, how do I offload this now? How do I not be the guy, right? So, but you would have never learned that had you not gone to the entrepreneurship journey, because you realize there are so many different facets to this thing that you have, that one thing that you once did before, you may not want to do in 2 years. You know, you may want to offload it. And the scale, you're going to have to offload it, you know? So it's really interesting. That's why I love being an entrepreneur, because you're ever growing, and things that you thought about 2 years ago that were exciting aren't exciting anymore. You know what I mean? Like if I can make 40 grand, dude, I'm going to retire on a beach in Tahiti. This is going to be great. And then, right. And then you look at 40 grand and you're like, bro, as a business owner, like, I was excited about that. You know, I was excited about making 100 grand. And so entrepreneurship just is that everlasting journey that I love the chase of that journey, because something is new all the time. You know,
yeah. So. Well, that might be a good transition into your, so from Embrogo brand on Etsy, right? You've been doing that for 3 years?
Etsy, I've been Embrogo brand on Etsy for 2.
2, okay.
Embroidering, you know, amateurly for 3.
Got it.
Figuring out as I go.
Right. But now you're a businessman. And you're doing stuff like on YouTube, the handmade hustle.
Yeah.
And you did a video. I feel like I need to pull it up now to see the title of it. But you did a couple, right? Where you talked about how you got fired and then moved into entrepreneurship, and then also how much you made during 3 weeks of quarantine.
Yes. Yes.
So now you're not just into this aspect of, you've established a business where delegating, offloading, freelancing aspects of your business, but also getting to that point where you're almost dabbling in business coaching, which is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you know what, it's transitioning over very nicely, because as a choreographer and as a teacher, I'm used to giving the advice, you know, I'm always a student, but giving the advice comes natural to me. It doesn't feel awkward. I'm very charismatic. I can speak. I know I can. So that is, you're right, transitioning over. And you know, what's really funny is that I used to look at my dance life and my business life as like Clark Kent and Superman. Like, Superman, I'm the dancer, but don't ever let that cross with Clark Kent, the business guy. You know what I mean? And once I embraced it, that's why on the Handmade Hustle, I say I'm a dancer, I'm a creative, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a dancer choreographer. Like, I don't want the business world to think I'm this dry business guy that doesn't have anything else going. I'm like, dude, it's all going to be all encompassing. It's all going to be me. And I think that's when people started to actually believe what I was saying, because they know that, dude, once you get Quinell the business guy, you get Quinell the dancer, you get Quinell the father, you get Quinell the husband, you get Quinell the, you know, all of it.
Yes. And I feel like we have needed that approach to business for so long, and ProWires is finally forcing it upon us, because guess what? 2 doors away, I have my sleeping baby, and I just pulled up her camera to see if she was waking up and if I was going to have to bring her in on this interview, because you have to get Casey the podcast guest and Casey the mom. And I love what coronavirus has done to us in that aspect of like flattening these, I don't even know if that's the right word, but bringing us whole as humans. Yeah. And not making us feel forced to continue this separation within ourselves of when we put this hat on or when we put that hat on.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think it's kind of derived from? I feel like it's derived from like the Fords of the world, the Nikes of the world, the Tommy Hilfigers. You don't know who the people are at all. You just know the brand. You know what I mean? And I feel like where we're at in a day and age now with social media and having the ability to just take your phone and walk around with it. Look at Ty Lopez. Ty Lopez is a guy who, you know, who spent, he says it himself, he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this fancy equipment and people didn't view his stuff. But the moment he did this, the moment he took his phone and started walking around talking about business, millions and millions and millions and millions of views and hits because people saw Ty Lopez the person, not Ty Lopez the brand. You know what I mean? So, that was to our disadvantage. With the Nikes, I'm not going to say the Nikes of the world is done, but the Nikes of the world now are trying to implement regular lifestyle within their campaigns, within how they approach things. They want people to be at a campfire holding a cell phone with Nikes on. Like, they're trying to make it very lifestyle driven and not corporate driven. So I think that's where you start to really see the individual and the business as an entire entity and not just, you know, you, the business, you, the mom, no, you're all encompassing. And I think that's what makes brands more real and what makes you want to invest in a business that much more.
100%. And I feel like, especially like when it comes to millennials, who are the children of, well, okay, maybe we get into some generational math here, right? We have those who were brought up in the Great Depression, who have little, then raise children who have more, and you get this like bumpy curve of have nots. Yeah. And right now it seems like millennials are entering that stage of not necessarily have nots, but choose nots. Because the generation before have a lot of haves, right?
Absolutely.
And then because of that choice, we're seeing people making decisions to associate themselves with a brand, with a company, with a product, with a service, with an offering that isn't just that end product they're getting, but it is more about the company at large, the humans behind it. You get to see this interesting development of brand loyalty due to understanding the story of the business owner. And
absolutely. There's a guy named Donald Miller, and he talks about, you know, allowing your customers to be the superhero, right? You there? Yeah. Oh, allow your customers to be the superhero. And he wrote a book called Story Brand, and he has a podcast called Story Brand. And he's talking about, if I can just sum it up in a nutshell, that people don't want to really, not necessarily support big business because it's easier, but they do want to support the Netflix of the world, right? Look at it right now. Like, we're supporting the Netflix of the world. Who has actual cable anymore with these big stations and networks, right? Yeah. They're transitioning over. And allowing your customer to be the superhero, meaning you tell your story and you let them feel your story through their life experiences and the things that they go through so that they can identify with your story, your brand, and really want to identify and pour into you because they see them in you.
Oh my gosh, full circle, Quinell. Did you hear what you just said? From when you were a 15-year-old and your why there, that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah. The same thing. Full circle. Love it.
Yeah, I guess so. So
keep going.
So yeah, no, that was just my point to that is like, yeah, I mean, a brand is, you know, again, it's all encompassing and it has to start with the person, not the product.
Yeah, 100%. Even like brushing up on some entrepreneurial literature, and Built to Last is a classic. It's a little old now. It's about 16 years old, but that is one of the big things that they talk about at the beginning is your who. Like, who are we and who am I surrounding myself with? And then establishing your what. Yeah. Anyway, I am interested to hear what your 3 takeaways are now for entrepreneurs listening?
Yeah. The biggest takeaway, let's go in least to greatest.
Okay.
Takeaway number 3 is, I think it's going to have to be, when you dive into entrepreneurship, dive into it not because it sounds cool, you know what I mean? But dive into entrepreneurship because you feel that there is something that you can offer. Like, you have to be able to offer something, okay? And by offering something, that doesn't necessarily mean something that you're super excited about. Because there's times I'm not excited about offering something for my business, right? But I know that if people are reaching out, and what I mean by not offering, I don't mean I don't want to do my business. I mean, like, there's days I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to do this, right? But people are still there. Why? Because you are offering a need. You're offering something that people want. That's takeaway number 3, right? Yeah. Be okay with having an offer and knowing that there's an offer that exists. Yes. Takeaway number 2, as an entrepreneur, and if you are learning and understanding, be a student. Like, be okay with being a student forever, though, okay? Don't be the entrepreneur that's like, dude, I made 50 grand this year. I think I got this whole business thing down. And what happens is, it's the entrepreneurs that make the least amount of money that have the most amount to say. You're like, bro, like, come on. You know, so be a student, you guys. If you're an entrepreneur today, be a student, please. Understand that you're always going to be a student, that you're forever evolving, that you're forever changing, and that you're forever growing. And takeaway number 1, this may sound very cliche, but your why is the only thing that's going to keep you in entrepreneurship. Yeah. Okay? My why has transitioned from my voice wanting to be heard and my micro voice wanting to be heard to, what are my kids going to experience? What are they going to learn about Papa? You know what I mean? That they never met. That's my biggest thing. What are my kids? Well, I hope it's not like my kids.
What your legacy is.
Yeah. I was like, I hope it's not my kids' because those are just my grandkids. I hope I'm here. But what are my kids' going to say about the great grandpapa that they never met?
Yeah.
Right? That's my biggest thing is, I tell my boys, I'm like, what are your kids' going to say about me? They're like, what? I'm like, exactly. Because that's how far you have to think. Right? And that's why I wake up every day doing what I do. And that's why through the suck, I do what I do, because I want my kids to say, dude, I know you're going through it. I want my grandkids, how about that one? To say, man, he set a path forth for us that we couldn't even imagine that we didn't have, right? I don't want another generation. I'm the generation that was like, dang, what did my grandpa even do? Because we don't have money. I don't have influence. We don't, nothing, you know? And I don't want that to be for my family legacy. My wife and I talk about all the time. We're like, what will our kids say about us? That's like our ongoing thing. And that's our why. Our why is, what will they say about us? What will they say about the life that we led for their grandparents, which are my kids? You know, what did we leave them? And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is your why has to impact your life, not your moment. If it impacts your moment, you'll lose it. If it impacts your life, you'll keep it. So yeah, I think those are the biggest takeaways that I can give is entrepreneurs just go into it with a mindset that it's not about the money, that it's not about how cool you are, that it's not about how amazing your brand and your product is, because a product is just going to be overtaken by another product. That's just a circle. That's just the cycle of what we do, you know? So your why has to be the biggest impact on your business, and that's going to filter into everything else that you do.
Amen.
So.
Well said, Quinell. Thank you so much. Now, if people wanted to find you, they could find you on Etsy by searching Ambrogo Brand.
Ambrogo Brand on Etsy, yes.
And I believe that there will be a weave code for purchasing a hat of sorts.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm gonna make it as soon as we get off, but I'll make the code, get weave or whatever.
I'll make sure to put it in the blog post for this episode as well. Make sure to look up Quinell's videos on YouTube at The Handmade Hustle.
Yes, on YouTube at The Handmade Hustle, TheHandMade. Oh, how do you spell
H-U-S-T-L-E. You did the hard part.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah,
okay, well, thanks again,
and then Embrogo Brand on Instagram, and it'll probably lead you down to my personal, which is all dance stuff, at Quinell Bash. And if you want free dance videos on YouTube, I have a YouTube video for there as well, and learning how to dance in just 5 minutes a day. So.
I love it. Love it. You need to do a TikTok dance.
We have to do a TikTok. I'm on there as well at Quinell Bash. So,
okay, done.
I'm on everything. I'm like Gary V. Gary V says you need to be on everything. I'm like, I'm on everything.
I love it. Okay, thanks again.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for listening to that episode of We've Connected. Make sure to hit subscribe down below so you get notified of any time we add a new episode. We'll catch you next time.